The morning sun stretched long shadows across the manicured lawns of Riverside Cemetery. Nearly 200 mourners dressed in elegant black stood in solemn silence around an ornate mahogany casket overflowing with white roses. The air smelled of fresh grass and grief. At the center stood Marcus Wellington, 52, a real estate tycoon worth an estimated $180 million. His silver-streaked hair was perfectly styled, his charcoal Armani suit flawless, yet his face looked carved from pain. "Catherine was my everything," Marcus sobbed into the microphone, his voice trembling. "Taken from me too soon in that horrible accident. My beautiful wife." Behind him stood his family, his sister Victoria, sharp-featured and cold-eyed, his brother James, visibly nervous, and 3 cousins who refused to lift their gazes. Atop the casket rested a photograph of a blonde woman with kind green eyes, Catherine Wellington. The priest raised his hands for the final prayer when a voice sliced through the silence like a blade. "That's a lie." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A tiny figure came sprinting between the gravestones, a young girl, no more than 7 years old, her faded blue dress too small and her sandals taped at the sides. Dirt smudged her cheeks, but her eyes burned with urgency. "Stop! She's not dead. Mrs. Catherine is alive." Security guards moved to intercept her, but Marcus raised a shaking hand. The girl, Maya, reached him, gasping for air. She told him she was homeless and slept behind the vents of Mercy Hill's nursing home for warmth. She insisted she had seen the woman from the photo through a window just 3 days ago, breathing, hooked to machines, but alive. Victoria hissed that the child was a delusional beggar, but Maya mentioned a detail that stopped Marcus's heart, a gold locket with a tiny blue stone. The police had told Marcus that all of Catherine's jewelry had been vaporized in the car fire. There was no way this girl could know about that specific, custom-made sapphire locket unless she had seen it. Marcus looked at his sister, then his brother. James was sweating, unable to meet his eyes. The grief that had paralyzed Marcus for weeks suddenly transformed into a cold, terrifying clarity. "Open the casket," Marcus commanded. The funeral directors protested, citing the traumatic nature of the remains, but Marcus didn't budge. When the lid was finally cranked open, the 200 mourners didn't see the remains of Catherine Wellington. They saw bags of construction sand and a mannequin draped in a burial shroud. The betrayal was so sudden and so deep that Marcus nearly collapsed. His own siblings had staged a death to seize control of the Wellington estate while he was blinded by mourning, leaving the police to detain his fleeing siblings. Marcus grabbed Maya's hand and raced to Mercy Hills. They burst into room 307, a room tucked away in a wing for unidentified long-term patients. There, Marcus found his wife. She was pale, her pulse weak from heavy sedation used to keep her hidden, but she was alive. As her eyes fluttered open and found Marcus, the world seemed to right itself. The accident had been a kidnapping, the body a fabrication. Victoria and James had planned to keep her drugged in that room for years while they drained the family accounts. In the weeks that followed, the story dominated the news, but the real transformation happened behind the closed gates of the Wellington Manor. Marcus and Catherine realized that their vast wealth had made them targets for those they trusted, yet it was a child with absolutely nothing who had saved them. Maya didn't just receive a reward, she found a home. The Wellingtons, who had struggled for years to conceive, formally adopted the girl who had looked through a window and seen the truth when the rest of the world chose to look away. The story of the millionaire and the street girl became a legend in the city, but for Marcus, Catherine, and Maya, it was simply the beginning of a life built on a new kind of wealth. They turned their pain into a mission, founding the Wellington Foundation for Displaced Children to ensure no child ever had to sleep behind a vent for warmth again. This story teaches that the truth does not care about status or bank accounts. It often resides in the hearts of those we are taught to ignore. Never underestimate the power of a single voice, no matter how small, and never forget that real family isn't defined by blood or money, but by the loyalty and love that shows up when the world goes dark. If you want to help children find safety and a future, consider supporting organizations that work with displaced children. Your eyes, like Maya's, might be the ones to see someone who needs saving today.